So for today's video, we're talking about altitude sickness, a really important subject. And I'm really pleased that Tim Nicol, who's the head of operations, has come down to answer a few of my questions. So Tim, let's get into it. What is altitude sickness?
Okay, so altitude sickness can occur above 2,500 meters. And as we ascend to higher altitudes, there's less oxygen for us to breathe. And our bodies acclimatise to the higher altitudes by producing more red blood cells and by breathing more deeply. And altitude sickness is the term used for a range of conditions that can occur when we ascend to high altitudes too quickly and don't allow our bodies to acclimatise to the higher altitudes.
So for most of this trek, I've been practicing for walking, I've been getting ready with my bags, but the altitude is something I've not really been able to prepare for. Is there anything I can train or prepare for to get myself ready for altitude?
Well, the only really effective way for training for high altitude is by spending time at high altitudes before your trip, which for the majority of us is impractical. However, KE itineraries are well designed to allow for sufficient acclimatisation to the high altitudes.
Okay, just looking specifically at the Everest Base Camp Trek, can I get altitude sickness on the Everest Base Camp Trek?
It is a possibility, yeah, because you're flying into 2,800 metres at Lukla and you're trekking to altitudes of over 5,000 metres.
In that case, how can I best prevent it?
Well, to prevent altitude sickness, the two golden rules to follow really are, one is to not overexert yourself, so to trek at a slow and steady pace, and when you arrive at your overnight accommodation, to take it easy. And the other golden rule to follow is to keep well hydrated. As with the exertion of trekking at high altitude and in the dry air that you'll experience, your body will lose a lot more liquid than it would at lower altitudes. So, typically, you need to drink about 1 to 1.5 litres more than you drink at low altitudes. So, and your KE leader, who'll be trained in the prevention, recognition and treatment of high altitude sickness, will ensure that the correct slow and steady pace is set when you're trekking, and they'll also monitor the group to ensure the group is drinking enough and keeping well hydrated.
If I start to feel unwell, what should I do?
Right, well, acute mountain sickness, or AMS, is the most common form of altitude sickness. And the symptoms typically would be, or can be, headache, lack of appetite, not sleeping that well, breathlessness, fatigue, sometimes dizziness. And these symptoms can come on shortly after reaching high altitude, but typically as your body acclimatises, the symptoms disappear. However, if you're feeling unwell, and you should let your leader know, and your leader will be able to offer you some advice, and they'll keep an eye on you to make sure the symptoms don't worsen. And if you're sharing a room or a tent, then you should let the person you're sharing the room with know that you're feeling unwell, and then if necessary, they can inform the leader.
Okay, so what will happen if I come down with AMS?
Well, as I said before, usually the symptoms of altitude sickness will, over time, as your body acclimatises, should disappear. However, if your symptoms persist, you should let your leader know, and your leader will assess your condition, and if necessary, they'll stop you ascending any further until your symptoms improve. If your symptoms worsen, then the leader might consider sending you down to a lower altitude. And typically, on descent to a lower altitude, the symptoms of altitude sickness reverse, and you often feel a lot better as you descend.
Well, hopefully I don't get it, but can you just summarise everything we've kind of gone over? Okay,
so in summary, altitude sickness is something that we should all be aware of when travelling to high altitudes, but it's not something we should overly worry about before travel. Because KE itineraries are well designed to ensure adequate acclimatisation with a sensible rate of ascent and with acclimatisation days built in where necessary. And in addition to that, your KE leader is trained in the recognition, prevention and treatment of high altitude sickness, And they'll continually monitor the group to make sure that the group and yourself can enjoy yourself on your holiday. So.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Tim. It's been really interesting and really important. I think it's the area that I'm most nervous about, but also a bit excited. I'm interested to see how I feel and cope. But thank you very much, Tim.
No, you're welcome.
If you have any questions at all about this or about any of our operations side, do feel free to contact the office and we'll put your questions through to Tim.
Okay, thanks, Alasdair.
Thanks, Tim.